Today, friends, I invite you to come with me to the town of Nablus in the West Bank, nestled between Mount Gerizim and Mount Ebal in traditional Samaritan territory, which I visited on my trip to the Holy Land in 2017. Tourists do not go to Nablus. It's only accessible through a permanent checkpoint, which is sometimes shut down if government officials think the citizens are getting too uppity. Trash and hundreds of broken down cars in varying states of decay litter the roadways. The buildings are old and dilapidated, and many of them are eerily unfinished. During the optimistic days after the Oslo Accords between Israel and the PLO in the early to mid-1990s, people thought Nablus would become a bustling modern city. They began to build tall towers, hoping to fill them with happy citizens and workers. That never happened. Money ran out, and thousands of Palestinian refugees pushed off their land by the military and settlers were crammed into camps in the city, putting a huge strain on resources. I was with a group of other clergy and seminary students as part of a course out of St. George's College in East Jerusalem. We were there to see the Greek Orthodox Church of St. Photine, built around Jacob's Well, the supposed site where today's gospel story takes place. Although in the story she is unnamed, the Orthodox Church has given the Samaritan woman this name, Photine. It's related to the Greek word for light. The gospel story does not follow Photine after her encounter with Jesus at the well, but there are legends that she converted many people to Christianity before being dragged in front of the Emperor Nero to be tortured and killed as a martyr. Our group got off the bus and stood outside the gates of the church, which is housed in a compound owned by a monastery. As we passed through the gates, I saw bullet holes and traced them with my fingers. We entered a beautiful garden. A large above-ground tomb was on my right, snug against the outer wall of the building, with a simple black and white mosaic framing a cross. There was also a mural featuring an elderly Orthodox priest painted just above it. I turned to Greg, our teacher. "Who's that buried there?" "It's empty," he said. I said, "What? Empty?" He said, "Well, the priest here, Father Justinos, has survived many attempts on his life. There's been a lot of violence. In fact, the priest here before him was murdered. A man threw a grenade into the building and then hacked him to death with an axe when he ran out. Father Justinos decided he might as well build his tomb ahead of time, just in case." Just in case. Those words are always a bit haunted, aren't they? Jacob's Well was below the main sanctuary in a little chapel underground. It is made of stone. It still works. I touched the water, and we were even allowed to drink it. It had a muted, clean taste. Then I met Father Justinos. He was short and slight and quiet, and sold icons and rosaries from a little shop right in the chapel. Many of the icons he had written himself. His eyes twinkled as he smiled behind his big beard. In an interview he did with Vice magazine in 2018, he talked about growing up on a small island off the coast of Greece and how his family home was occupied by Axis forces in World War II. When he decided to become a priest, he said his family stopped talking to him for 6 years. He didn't say why. He came to Palestine when he was about 21, hoping to serve as the guardian of Jacob's Well. But when his predecessor, Philumenos, was murdered, the church was locked up and the keys taken to Jerusalem. Father Justinos said, "I did not want to be the guardian, as I was afraid the same thing would happen to me that happened to my friend, Philumenos. One night I had a dream, and in the dream I saw a vision of myself repairing the church and serving as the guardian for many years. I went to Jerusalem, got the keys, and soon began picking up the pieces." In 1982, 3 years after Philumenos was killed, the murderer, a Jewish convert named Asher Rabbi, returned. He attacked a nun and Father Justinos with his axe and threw another grenade. But Father Justinos fought him off, and Rabbi was finally arrested. After that, Father Justinos recruited boys from one of the refugee camps, trained them as stonemasons, and together they rebuilt. He spent a lot of time painting murals and icons, making the church beautiful again. Things were relatively peaceful until the Second Intifada in 2000. Father Justinos said, "We were suffering very badly. I could not leave these grounds for many months. During this time, I spent most of my days painting murals and praying. I prayed to God and to Voluminos' spirit to help protect the church. An Israeli tank fired at our gate, but it did not break. They dropped 5 bombs on the grounds, but none of them went off. I am thankful that we were under supervision of the saints." About his tomb that I saw, Father Justinos said, "Should it be my time to die, I am ready." We went into the church. In a corner, a huge icon of now Saint Voluminos, the priest who was murdered, was put by his tomb. I stood there for a long time, asking for his strength. A week or 2 later, I left the Holy Land and continued with my peaceful and privileged life. I went back to my home near Sanark, which was stolen from the Squamish people years before I was born, and renamed Kitsilano. I ate food that others had grown and wore clothes that others had sewn. I drank water that didn't have to be boiled. I went to church where I never worried about finding hateful graffiti or desecrations on the front stoop, or angry men interrupting worship with axes, or Bible study with AR-15s. Then in August of that year, I watched Charlottesville, a college town in Virginia, explode in a paroxysm of hate. It feels like things have only gotten more violent since then. The waters of Massa and Meribah were a testing ground for the people of Israel, who had forgotten God's incredible acts of liberation and care for them. And yet, even as the people lashed out and complained and panicked, water burst forth from solid rock. Despite the mountain of hatred and division that existed between Jews and the Samaritans, Jesus met Fotine at a well and chose to speak to her. And life burst forth from that mountain's stony heart. Despite the advancing fascism covering the earth like a virus, people of faith and no faith are always standing in solidarity with the oppressed and allowing life to burst out of the solid rock of hate, allowing life to blossom between the brick walls of race, culture, creed, and class. Since 2017, I've been blessed to see photographs and videos of people marching in protests and rallies. A crowd in Charlottesville, arms linked. An Orthodox priest in Ukraine, waving a thurible full of incense through a cloud of tear gas. Neighbors rushing out to stop neighbors from being pulled off the streets by ICE. Strangers sending messages of support to hurting communities from halfway around the world. I see all of this and I think of Voluminos and the axe, Justinos and the tank, Fotine standing before Nero, the one who came to us as a servant, a worker, a lynching victim. And I think of life springing up from places it has no business being, living water gushing forth from solid rock.